Okay, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight, or at any time if you're watching this recording. We're here today to talk about the 2027 to 2030 Transportation Improvement Program for the Central Naugatuck Valley MPO, as well as the statewide Transportation Improvement Program over the same time period. Here in the room, we have myself. I'm Rich Donovan, the Director of Transportation Planning for the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, which is the host agency for the Central Naugatuck Valley MPO. I am joined by Anthony and Desiree from our staff who will introduce themselves, as well as several members of staff from the DOT who can also do introductions. Anthony?
My name is Anthony Lagana. I'm the Transportation Planner at the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments.
My name is Desiree Blanchard, and I'm the Communications and Community Engagement Coordinator at NVCOG.
Thank you. And Rose?
Rose Tukawi, CTDOT.
Blake Bauer with CTDOT.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here. So just a quick overview for the meeting this evening. Captions are available and can be turned on for anyone who would like to use them. Please do not add questions into the chat box of the meeting. The chat box for record keeping purposes, we don't necessarily get a transcript of the chat box. So please ask those questions using the raise hand feature. And the meeting is going to be recorded and available on the NVCOG YouTube channel. So tonight we're going to talk about a few things, a quick introduction to who we are as the CNVMPO and NVCOG. We're going to talk about what the Transportation Improvement Program is and why we go through this process. We'll touch on this year's TIP, the 27 to 2030 TIP cycle. We will take a look at the air quality conformity determination and how that fits into the transportation planning process. We'll talk through ways to get involved, either this evening in the upcoming weeks or at the final MPO meeting where the CNV MPO board will consider adoption of this document. And we'll have time at the end for some question and answer. So just a quick overview. The Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments represents 19 towns and cities here in West Central Connecticut, centered around the city of Waterbury. Of those 19 towns and cities, 4 belong to the Greater Bridgeport and Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization. Those 4 towns, Ansonia, Seymour, Shelton, and Derby, as well as the 6 Connecticut Metropolitan Council of Government towns are covered under the Transportation Improvement Program for the GBV MPO. Information about that is available on our website, NVCOGCT.gov, as well as the Connecticut Metropolitan Council of Governments website. Information about that program, as well as a project listing and ways to get involved in that process, are all included on the NVCOG website. The remaining 15 towns here for the Central Naugatuck Valley MPO make up the project list we're going to talk about this evening. Just a quick background on metropolitan planning organizations for those that do not know. We are effectively the direct outcome from the Interstate Highway Program. We are the way that local elected officials get a say in how federal and state transportation dollars are spent within their communities, and a way for all of you as residents through your elected officials to have a say in this process. So talking a little bit about what a TIP is, I'm going to turn this over to Anthony Lagana from our staff to give a little bit of background on the TIP process.
So the TIP, or the Transportation Improvement Program, is a list of all projects within each metropolitan planning organization expected to receive federal funding during its 4-year period. The 4-year period for this TIP we're speaking about now is 2027 to 2030. The Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, is physically constrained, meaning all projects within it must identify their funding source and be based on reasonably expected funds in the future. The TIP includes projects that impact highways and roads, public transit, trails, and sidewalks. Next slide. So just a brief overview of the difference between the TIP and the STIP. Projects within the TIP are selected through coordination between the Central Naugatuck Valley MPO, our member municipalities, Connecticut Transit, Metro North, and the Connecticut Department of Transportation. These selected projects and the process behind it is heavily based on the principles of performance-based transportation planning. All transportation improvement programs across the state are eventually combined into the statewide Transportation Improvement Program, or the STIP, which lives over at Connecticut DOT. Next slide. And here's just a QR code to look over the draft of the federal fiscal year 2027 to 2030 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, for the Central Naugatuck+Valley region. You can do it with your phone, or you can go to the NVCOG website. Next slide.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to step in here for a moment, just touch on a couple of things. The critically important is that a TIP be in place for a region in order for any federal dollars to be spent. The current TIP, which runs from 2025 through fiscal year 2028, will end on October 1st of 2028, the start of the federal fiscal year 2029. We are updating this process now with an anticipated effective date of October 1st of 2026, or the start of federal fiscal year 27, so that we guarantee we have enough time to make any edits or changes, and that all parties involved have a chance to review, which includes the MPOs, the Connecticut Department of Transportation, the Federal Highway Administration, and the Federal Transit Administration. Within this document that is seen here on the screen and can be found following this QR code or on the NVCOG website, there is quite a bit more information about the project selection process. Project selection is one of the most important elements to this document. Here in Connecticut especially, we are very focused on performance-based planning. We are committed to spending the available resources on transportation to ensure that the system works well and is safe and efficient. We know that we have an older transportation system. We have a number of areas where there are clear condition issues that have developed over years of heavy use in many cases. And so the process by which we select where these projects are programmed is based heavily on condition, utilization, and trying to address some of the key federal performance measures, which include safety, roadway condition, and congestion mitigation. So breaking down a little bit of information about the 27 to 2030 TIP here for the Central Naugatuck+Valley MPO. You'll see a breakdown of the two main project types, which are Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration projects. In this TIP, you'll notice that a significant number of projects are programmed with federal highway dollars and are focused on the highway, trail, and sidewalk systems. This is a change from the 25 to 28 TIP, which was primarily FTA projects. That included there's a number of reasons for that we want to touch on briefly. So first and most importantly, there was a vehicle procurement, a vehicle replacement for CT Transit Waterbury included in the last TIP cycle. That has been completed or those funds have been fully programmed. And so they do not show up in this document. That makes a big difference in that ratio. The other is the Waterbury Line Station Program. So all six train stations along the Waterbury branch line of Metro North are being upgraded and replaced. And here in the Central Naugatuck+Valley, that includes Waterbury, Naugatuck, and Beacon Falls. Those projects similarly were fully programmed in the 25 to 28 TIP, and therefore do not show up in the 27 to 30 TIP's financial breakdown. Given that those major transit projects are still ongoing with funds that have been fully obligated, this ratio is not surprising, nor does it super out of line with expectations. We also know there's a number of new highway and mobility-focused projects coming from the New Mix program, which is looking to replace the Interstate 84 and Route 8 interchange here in Waterbury. That project is spinning off early action items. Some of those early action items are designed specifically to benefit mobility here within the city of Waterbury in advance of the major construction on the highway system. And so a number of those early action projects have made their way into this TIP, helping to influence this ratio as well. We're seeing, so this 4-year period, there's just about 1.46 million or 1.47 billion dollars, programmed within the CNV MPO area, or projects that impact the CNV MPO along with other MPO areas. As mentioned, the Connecticut Department of Transportation, along with the state's MPOs, are really committed to ensuring a state of good repair and programming our dollars in a way that focuses on those performance metrics. And so one of the things we see is that many of these projects are done at the district level at Connecticut DOT. That district level does not necessarily align with our MPO boundaries. And so a number of the funds that you'll see here included within the TIP are not necessarily entirely within the CNV MPO, but will be spent within our region and surrounding regions based on DOT boundaries. As you look through the project listing for the current TIP, you may notice that very few specific projects are occurring in our member towns, but many of them are on those regional boundaries. This is because of that focus on a state of good repair and maintaining what exists already versus significant system improvements there are very few projects that are focused on actual system expansion, given the built-out nature of our system and the physical constraints of a heavily developed region. So we've mentioned fiscal constraint within the tip. Fiscal constraint means that we can't program projects we don't expect to reasonably have the resources to pay for. This includes federal and state dollars, as well as any local or non-governmental contributions. One thing that's important to note is that the breakdown of federal funds, some of them are directed to the state as a whole and can be spent anywhere within the state, and some are sub-allocated or directed specifically to an urban area. The urban areas are defined by the US Census Bureau following every decennial census. And here in the CNV-MPO, we have portions of 4 separate urban areas. You'll see on the screen, there's a map of the MPO within and the urban areas within it. The town of Cheshire and a small portion of Prospect fit within the New Haven urban area. Bristol, Plymouth, and Thomaston all have portions of the Hartford urban area. Oxford, Beacon Falls, Southbury, and Woodbury all contain portions of the Bridgeport-Stamford urban area. And much of the region's remaining urban area falls within the Waterbury urban area. Bridgeport-Stamford, New Haven, and Hartford are all what are considered transportation management areas, or TMAs. They are designated that way by having populations of greater than 200,000, and therefore are given dedicated sub-allocated pockets of funding. The Waterbury urban area, although designated a TMA, was done so by request and not by hitting that population threshold. As of the 2020 census, the Waterbury urban area was a bit under, just under that 200,000 resident number. And so through an act of the governor and secretary of transportation, the area was designated as a transportation management area, but is not sub-allocated into a separate pot of funding, but instead draws from the other urban area funding pool, which includes cities or urban areas between 50 and 200,000 residents. And here in Connecticut, that includes New London, Danbury, and Waterbury. Within these 4 urban areas that we have here in our region, we work closely with our partner MPOs in those urban areas to ensure that we don't overspend the sub-allocated amounts, and that each urban area's funds are spent to the best of our ability to advance that state of good repair. We work very closely with our partners here at the Western Connecticut Council of Governments and the Connecticut Metropolitan Council of Governments in the Bridgeport-Stamford area, with the Capital Region Council of Governments and the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments on the Hartford urban area, and with the South Central and River Valley Council of Governments on the New Haven urban area. So importantly, every 4 years, the MPO must create a long-range transportation plan. In doing so, we're identifying the region's goals and the vision for transportation in our region over that period of time. The TIP is then the implementation of the projects necessary to get us to those goals, or to achieve those goals, and to get us toward that vision. That long-range transportation plan helps to influence our project selection process for within the TIP, ensuring that the projects that are actually being funded and actually being built all work towards those long-term goals. The last MTP, or Metropolitan Transportation Plan, adopted by the CNV-MPO in 2023, laid out several key goals, including a Vision Zero target of eliminating all serious injuries and fatalities on our region's roads by 2060, and ideally sooner. It laid out the goal of providing more mobility options. So for those who choose or cannot drive, to have public transit and active transportation options available to them. And it also laid out a goal of improving the condition of our infrastructure, addressing some of the long-standing condition issues from our aging and heavily utilized infrastructure. And so the 27 to 2030 TIP, again, selected in coordination with our transit partners, fellow MPOs, and Connecticut Department of Transportation, all works carefully to advance those goals across our region's 15 towns. Moving on from the TIP itself, we'll talk briefly about air quality conformity. So federal requirements say that the TIP must not make air quality worse in areas that do not meet EPA ambient air quality standards. What that ultimately means is that through a process of modeling these projects, as well as those identified within the Metropolitan Transportation Plans, we have to demonstrate that we are within the limits set by EPA for the components of the air quality issues that we face. The central Naugatuck Valley fits within three modeling required areas. So we are part of both the greater Connecticut and the Connecticut portion of the New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut ozone non-attainment areas, as well as the as well as the Connecticut portion of the New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut PM 2.5 or particulate matter 2.5 microns maintenance area. So you'll see from these graphs here on the screen, the blue line representing the anticipated emissions of these component materials, the orange lines representing the EPA limits on these components, that the model shows we are well below the allowable emissions on the component materials of ozone within the greater Connecticut ozone non-attainment area between now and 2055, the horizon year for the next Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We similarly see we are well below the allowable limits within the Connecticut portion of the New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut ozone non-attainment area. And similarly, well below the allowable limits in the PM 2.5 maintenance area. Important to note that transportation is a major contributor to air quality issues, but is not the sole contributor. Here in Connecticut, we know that transportation represents somewhere around 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions. But most of these air quality issues that we're modeling for are actually based on out-of-state activity. One of the challenges of being a northeastern state is that we receive air from across the country, and Midwest and other Northeast manufacturing and electric generation contributes to some of our ambient air quality concerns. But as you can see, the statewide modeling demonstrates that the transportation system and the proposed projects within it contribute to an improvement in those air quality issues and do not contribute to or do not exceed our allowable limits and risk making those issues greater. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Anthony for a moment to talk about ways to get involved.
This is our invitation to members of the public or other stakeholders to get involved before we adopt this tip in mid-May. If you'd like to share your thoughts, any questions or comments before the CNVMPO Policy Board adopts this tip, you could email us by emailing Rich Donovan or rdonovan@nvcogct.gov. You can call us via telephone, call the NVCOG offices Monday through Friday between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. You're calling 203-757-0535, or you can send us mail. Comments can be sent directly to NVCOG. Coordinate with Rich Donovan at 49 Leavenworth Street, 3rd floor, Waterbury, Connecticut, 06702.
Importantly, comments are not just accepted in this time where we're working through the draft of this next tip, but at any time on any project within the tip. And we encourage residents and visitors to our region, as well as anyone interested, to contact us via these same methods at any time. We also would like to mention that language services are available to anyone who needs them by request. And so if you call that number and request language services, we are able to accommodate that request at that time, and messages sent in any language will be responded to.
You also get involved by going to our project tracker, which is called Eco Interactive. The CNVMPO has adopted the Eco Interactive platform to provide detailed project information and accept comments on individual projects. You're actually able to add comments on the Eco Interactive website, as well as view some of the financial information related to the project. Publicly available financial information, of course.
So as an important note, Eco Interactive is for informational purposes primarily. It is not necessarily the final or most correct version of those financials, although we are certainly working to keep it up to date. For a detailed financial breakdown, a spreadsheet of all of these projects is available on the NVCOG website. We do encourage residents to check out the individual projects. You can search by your town. You can search by the system if you're interested in seeing projects only on one of the highways or on a specific route, or by public transit system. It is a great resource, and we are excited to have partnered with both Eco Interactive and the Connecticut Department of Transportation on this project. The entire SIP is also available via Eco Interactive, and we encourage residents to check out the state website to learn more. And with that, we'll open it up to questions and answers, unless our state partners would like to add a comment before we do.
Just to invite anyone that is watching now or will watch later to our public involvement information meeting scheduled June 3rd at the Connecticut DOT headquarters in Newington. We'll be having two sessions, one in the afternoon from 1 o'clock, and the next one will be the same day, June 3rd, at 7 o'clock in the evening. There will be staff from different bureaus to answer any questions or concerns that you might have. So.
Information about those meetings is also available on the NVCOG website. Well, we thank you for watching, and we encourage you to stay connected with NVCOG, learn more about this process and the others that we take on, both in transportation and in our other planning areas here in the region. And to please reach out with questions or comments about the 27 to 2030 TIP in advance of the CNVMPO meeting on May 15th. That meeting is open to the public for anyone who would like to provide comments. And again, the acceptance of this TIP on that date does not end the opportunity for the public to ask questions or provide comments. We are always happy to provide additional information. Thank you.